Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the past week of nerdy movies. We got a good show for you today. Got some stories to talk about, as we do every week. I don't know. Let's just get into it. First of all, it looks like Taylor Swift might be in Deadpool 3. So, there were various pictures that came out of her hanging out with Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and the director who's on the left-hand side, Sean Levy. And there are other pictures. I only saved one of them. This is weird. So, like, a lot of times, like, you know, fans will, like, look at actors just behaving nonchalantly and be like, this means that they're this. You know, like, maybe they'll see, like, Tom Holland dressed in a green shirt and he's like, oh, he's playing Link in the Legend of Zelda movie. Oh my gosh. Like, fans definitely get overzealous sometimes. So, like, if Taylor Swift were hanging out with Ryan Reynolds, I don't think that would mean anything. If she were hanging out with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, I'd be like, okay. I mean, it doesn't mean anything, but it's interesting to note. She's hanging out with not just Ryan Reynolds, but Hugh Jackman, but also the director of Deadpool 3. I mean, like, surely I feel like that kind of that's a bit of a weird coincidence. You know, it's like I get that directors are also oftentimes friends with their actors and whatnot. So, but it's like, is it really a coincidence that the director and Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman happen to be friends with Taylor Swift? This feels odd to me. I don't know. Let's be clear. It is nowhere near confirmed that Taylor Swift will be playing somebody in Deadpool 3. But I'm kind of at the point where I believe that is the case. And by the way, the picture on the right here is of a mutant called Dazzler, who is apparently a mutant that is also a pop star in the X-Men comic books, and that is who everyone's predicting Taylor Swift is going to be playing. So that is the picture I'm using. But yeah, we have no idea who or if she is going to be in the movie, but I'm at the point now where I believe that it is going to be the case. But we will have to wait and find out. All right, next up, we got some clarification on the Knights of the Old Republic situation. So, this is a guy, this is like a reporter guy. So, if you remember last week, we talked about how PlayStation hid the trailer for Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake and deleted the announcement tweet. And this is what a reporter guy had to say. Asked Disney what was up, and they sent me to Sony. Asked Sony what was up, and they said, as part of normal business, we delist assets with licensed music when the licenses expire. Of course, now I'm asking why the music license would expire for an upcoming game. So I guess Sony is trying to say that their license expired for the music, so that's why they delisted the trailer? I kind of just don't buy that. I'm just like, I've never heard of like a trailer disappearing because the license expired. Like, are we going to get to one day where Warner Brothers removes the trailer for The Batman because, oh no, our license with Nirvana expired? It's like, oh, is that really going to happen at some point? I've just like never heard of this. So immediately my fishy sensors are tingling. And I think the more obvious choice here is clear, where I think the game is just in development hell. Because yeah, if you don't know, the Knights of the Old Republic remake was announced and it was being developed by a studio, and then that studio presented their game to Sony and Lucasfilm, and Sony and or Lucasfilm were like, this is so bad that we are going to remove you from this project. Like, they removed the initial studio from the project and they brought in this other studio. And as far as we know, that studio is still working on the game. But yeah, I don't know. The fact that they removed the trailer kind of tells me that I'm at the point where I think this project is dead, because the Lucasfilm is the most uncapable, just worst company to ever exist, and they're just not able to create things. Or at the very least, they just have the bad habit of announcing projects before you really should. So it's just another day, another day for Lucasfilm. All right, next story. Vision Quest. It looks like it might be canceled. So let's look at this tweet here. Jacques Schaefer and other writers have removed Vision Quest from their WGA profiles. Agatha Coven of Chaos title has been updated to Agatha Darkhold Diaries on the same profiles. So yeah, so apparently there are these Writers Guild of America profiles, and Vision Quest, the people that were said to reported to be working on it, are no longer having it listed in their profiles. So yeah, I'm not too surprised by this. We heard from Bob Iger, the president or CEO of Disney. He came in. He came into his tenure, and one of the first things that he said was that Marvel is like too bloated and we're making too much content, which he's not wrong about. And so you kind of would have to expect that projects are going to end up getting the axe. And yeah, Vision Quest is a project that I'm not surprised about. Like, I don't even know. I'm not even sure what exactly the project would have been. But I mean, I guess it could have been interesting, right? Like exploring a show about like a robot, maybe having the robot learn what human emotions are, blah, blah, blah. Like that stuff can be interesting, but it also does, it reminds me of what they did with Loki, where when you look at the Loki show, one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of it is because they basically just undid the death of Loki in a sense, because they were like, okay, Loki died in Infinity War. Well, we can just get the Loki from the first Avengers movie and make him go through the exact same character arc so that he's a good guy now. That's kind of what it felt like to me. And then you get to like the Vision Quest, what that potentially could have been. It would have been, well, Vision died in Infinity War, so let's just grab a clone of Vision and make him go through the same character arc. And that I could see that also being kind of annoying. So I don't know. I'm rambling a bit, but I'm not too surprised that this is canceled. I think more projects are going to end up just not coming to fruition, especially if they haven't started production. So yeah, I expect to see more. Is all I'm gonna say. All right. The Batman Arkham Trilogy on Switch has received a delay. They put out this image here. Batman Arkham Trilogy for Nintendo Switch will now launch on December 1st, 2023. More time is needed to bring players the best possible experience on Nintendo Switch. We apologize to fans who are excited to play this version of the trilogy. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, what this tells me is that Arkham Knight they're having trouble getting Arkham Knight running on Switch. And that was also the interesting game to me, because there's no way that Arkham Asylum and Arkham City are having trouble running on Switch, because those games came out on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and that is what the Switch is about as powerful as. So it has to be Arkham Knight. And I hope they're able to get it running decently, because it is basically like a next generation game trying to run on last gen hardware. Like, listen, as long as it runs at like 720p and like 25 FPS, I don't know. Or I guess maybe honestly, I would at what resolution does that Witcher 3 port run on Switch? I think it might be like 480p. I mean, I guess I say at least 720p, but if we're being honest, it's not going to get to that resolution. I don't know. Listen, as long as it's like stable, Like, I can take a stable lower frame rate. And I will be willing to accept lower resolution, but I'm very curious to see how this is going to shape up. Um, but yeah, it seems obvious that it's because of Arkham Knight. But we will have to wait and see. All right, next story. We got a new look at Joker 2, Folie Adieu. Joker Folie Adieu. Folie Adieu. However you pronounce that. Yeah, so he's there with umbrellas. Apparently people are saying that this image looks like a ripoff of some umbrella movie, a movie about umbrellas, kind of like how, and I guess it seems like this movie is going to rip off that movie, kind of like how the first Joker ripped off King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. And that's kind of funny. I have no idea what that movie is. I probably should have written it down so that I could say the proper name of it here, but yeah, I don't know. It looks like it's the Joker sequel. I don't really have any concept of what it's really gonna be about, even. So it looks cool. We'll have to wait and see. All right, looks like Loki and Thor reuniting is kind of the aim of the MCU at this point. So let's read here from Variety. So this is an interview with somebody that like works on the Loki show. Do you think Loki would ever rejoin the larger world of the MCU? That's the hope. I don't want to. Yeah, I think the sun shining on Loki and Thor once again has always been the priority of the story we're telling. But for that to be really fulfilling, we have to get Loki to a certain place emotionally. I think that's been the goal of these 2 seasons. So yeah, apparently the goal of the Loki show is to get Loki and Thor reunited. I guess when he means emotionally is like getting Loki to a place where he feels like good about himself and he's not an asshole. Although by the end of the first season, I feel like he was already not an asshole. But maybe yes, yeah. I guess one of the things about Loki is that he feels just perpetually inferior, and that's why he does everything he does. So I guess that's probably the goal of the Loki show, is to give him some more self-confidence before he can proudly stand alongside his brother or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it's interesting. I feel like for sure one of the things that Thor: Love and Thunder suffered from is the lack of Tom Hiddleston. That is he definitely brought a lot to those Thor movies. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another Thor movie and Loki is a part of that. I don't know, but we will have to wait and see. It looks like Naughty Dog has some layoffs. It's coming from Kotaku. Kotaku has learned that the maker of hits like Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and The Last of Us Part 2 has begun cutting contracts short for dozens of workers. Departments ranging from art to production were impacted, but the majority of those laid off worked in quality assurance testing. The sources said at least 25 developers were part of the downsizing. Full-time staff do not appear to have been part of the cuts. Sources tell Kotaku that no severance is being offered for those currently laid off, and that impacted developers as well as remaining employees are being pressured to keep the news quiet. Despite hit ratings for the recent HBO adaptation of The Last of Us, a multiplayer spin-off game for the zombie shooter based on the first game's factions mode has struggled in development. Bloomberg reported in June that Sony had diverted resources away from the project following a negative internal review by Bungie, the recently acquired live service powerhouse behind Destiny 2. One source now tells Kotaku that the multiplayer game, while not being completely canceled, is basically on ice at this point. So, yeah, obviously people getting fired is sad. And now it says that they weren't being given severance, but I will say, I don't know, do contract workers getting severance, is that like a normal thing? I'm not saying it's not, but I personally just don't know. And yeah, it seems like Last of Us Factions is very much on its last legs at this point. It's very strange because I don't know, I'm completely talking out of my ass here, but the idea that Naughty Dog would make a game so bad that they would just cancel it mid-production, especially after they talked about it at the Game Awards, because that really... like what scares me is that Last of Us Factions is actually just like kind of a good game, and Bungie came in and were like, it's not live servicey enough, you know. There's no way that you're going to be able to extract as much money as possible with this game, you know. There aren't enough emotes and Fortnite skins in the game. It's like that. Like, what scares me is that this is like actually a good game, but it's just not really conducive to sucking every bit of money out of players like a normal live service game would be. Or maybe it's not a game that you can feasibly create content for as a part of a live service for like years to come. And that sucks. I don't know. It kind of sucks that, like, this is just one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of live service games, where it's like, man, it's like, can you really not just make like a cool live service game that lasts for like a couple years and then be like, okay, we're done? Like, you could charge us $70 for it. Is that not okay to do? Like, do all of these games have to have the aspirations of being the next Fortnite? You know, I don't know. It seems like the video game development when it comes to live service games are really just coming to a head in a bit of a weird way. So we'll have to wait and see where that all leads to. But for now, let's move on to the next story. We got some information about Peacemaker Season 2. So, looks like James Gunn is working on it. So, I guess James Gunn said on Threads at one point, or somebody asked him, Season 2, please! And James Gunn responded saying, I'm writing it now. Then somebody, like, quote, threaded him. This is on Threads, remember. James is currently writing Season 2 of Peacemaker. And then James Gunn, quote, threaded that guy and was like, I am, and I'm having so much fun. So, yeah, it seems like James Gunn is writing Peacemaker Season 2 right now. Some people are saying, like, how could he do that? Well, he's also doing Superman Legacy. Well, that's actually not that surprising, because as far as Superman Legacy is concerned, they can't really work too much on that movie right now because, like, the script is done, and I guess they're probably doing, like, visual effects and stuff like that, but the cast aren't, like, while the writer's strike is over, the actor strike is still ongoing, so they can't really, like, bring in the cast and talk, and they can't do more casting if they still need to do more castings. You know, they're obviously can't start filming, so it probably is the case that James Gunn is kind of in a bit of a lull with Superman Legacy. So, I mean, yeah, if you don't have anything else to do, you definitely got more stuff to do with other shows and other movies. So, yeah, to me, it's not all that surprising or, like, worrying that James Gunn is writing Season 2 of Peacemaker. But then there are also some continuity issues that he talked about. So, somebody asked him, will Season 2 of Peacemaker take place in the new DCU/new continuity, or will it at least be addressed? James Gunn responded and said yes and yes. And he's basically saying that Season 2 of Peacemaker will take place in the new continuity, and it will be addressed. So, yeah, this is obviously interesting, obviously confusing. Let us see if we can unpack it. So, in the last week, we talked about how James Gunn has stated that continuity is going to start at Creature Commandos, right? And then it is going to be Creature Commandos, then Superman Legacy, so on and so forth. That was in direct opposition, direct contradiction to what James Gunn said that The Flash was resetting the universe, and that's obviously a lie, because then if The Flash was resetting its universe, then the Blue Beetle movie and even Aquaman technically would have been like a part of the new continuity. That just seems to not be the case. And from that perspective, how does that Waller show work, where Viola Davis is playing Amanda Waller? How is Season 2 of Peacemaker going to work if it's a part of the new canon, but Season 1 was a part of the old DCEU? And I think this is my guess. My guess is the way that it's kind of going to work is, do you remember the end of Spider-Man Far From Home? Remember when J. Jonah Jameson came out and told everybody his secret identity? How did that work? How was J.K. Simmons playing J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man Far From Home, but he also played J. Jonah Jameson in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies? What's going on here? Are they in the same universe now? Nobody was really confused by that. I feel like everybody pretty much immediately went, so he's also playing a different version of J. Jonah Jameson here in the MCU. I think that's what he's gonna do. I think that this Peacemaker in season 2 is going to be a new Peacemaker. I think that the Amanda Waller in the Waller show is going to be a new Amanda Waller. I think that Jolo Maridueña is going to be playing a different Blue Beetle in the MCU, and anybody else that comes forward, I think they're going to be different versions of those characters. Is it a little confusing? Absolutely. Like, is it irresponsible to be doing a Peacemaker season 2? In my opinion, yes. That being said, I don't think that it's going to be the end of the world. I don't think it's going to be all that confusing, because I do think that what's important is that a new universe is clearly established. And that's why I know people are upset. It was like, but if he's bringing all of these guys back into his new continuity, why isn't he bringing back Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot? Blah, blah, blah. And I get that, but in my opinion, those 3 roles are like the most important ones that you have to recast, because I think that getting a new Superman in with Superman Legacy, and getting a new Batman, and getting a new Wonder Woman, those are the 3 most important roles that will establish a new universe. When you have a different Superman that isn't in Henry Cavill, I think that establishes that new universe and allows for other familiar characters to show up without making people think it's the old universe. Because when you watched Spider-Man Far From Home and J.K. Simmons' J. Jonah Jameson came out, you still understood that this was not the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe, because Tom Holland is so established as Spider-Man and he is so firmly established in the MCU. So that's going to be the goal. We have to watch this new season of Peacemaker, and this universe has to be so well established that we don't question whether or not this is the old DCEU. So yeah, we'll see if he's able to do that. I don't think it's going to be easy, but we will see. All right, next story. Looks like there's going to be a live-action project for Cyberpunk 2077. So this was from a press release that CD Projekt Red released. CD Projekt Red is pleased to announce it has begun a collaboration with global media company Anonymous Content to develop a live-action project set in the world of its best-selling video game, Cyberpunk 2077. The new project is at an early development stage and is currently commenced searching for a screenwriter to tell a brand new story set in the world of Cyberpunk 2077. This is interesting. I mean, they don't actually specify whether it is a movie or a show. They just say it's a new live-action project. So my guess is that it's probably going to end up being a show, only because, Netflix found success with The Witcher, and that, that did absolutely translate to Witcher 3 sales, and the Cyberpunk anime definitely transitioned to, or translated to, Cyberpunk sales. So my guess is that it's probably going to be a show. Although I'm trying to remember, did the Uncharted movie translate to any Uncharted sales? I don't know, because we know that the Last of Us show translated to Last of Us sales. So either way, it does seem like live action shows and live action series absolutely can lead to video game sales. So I think it's probably likely that it'll be a show. Either way, I actually think that this is probably a good move, even from a creative standpoint and not just from a money-hungry business standpoint, because they already proved with the Edgerunners anime that this is Cyberpunk is a world where you can tell a bunch of different stories, and it doesn't necessarily have to just be an adaptation of the game. Because that's the other thing. My guess is that it's probably not going to be an adaptation of the game. It's probably just going to be a story set in the world of Cyberpunk. And I definitely think that's smart because, from what I understand, Cyberpunk 2077 is like an open-ended RPG where like you can have different routes, and I don't know if there are different endings and stuff. So it's probably easier to just tell your own story instead of trying to adapt it. But we'll see. We don't really know much about it, to be honest. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, and those are all the stories that we have for today. Let's get into the last segment of the show where we get into what I've been watching. So I've been watching Gen V. I watched the first 2 episodes. I'm not gonna lie. I recently started doing reaction videos. You can check them out on the channel. And it has led to me being getting very behind on stuff. So I've only watched the first 2 episodes of Gen V. I only have the first reaction video up as of recording this video, and I haven't watched the 3rd episode. I haven't watched the season finale of Ahsoka. I haven't watched the first episode of Loki season 2. So I'm behind. I'm going to try to catch up, but I've watched the first 2 episodes of Gen V, and I really enjoy it. It is very much in the boys' fashion. It's raunchy. It's edgy. It's violent. There's a lot of social commentary and all that. But I think what this show really excels at, and I think is the reason why I really enjoy it, is the characters. I think they do a really great job of making these characters likable, and they feel sympathetic. You know, you kind of feel for them to a certain extent. Even the ones that are kind of morally dubious, including our main character, they like the actions that all of these characters take make sense, and even if they're the wrong decisions, you still understand why they're making them. I think they do a good job of showing that, because this show is very much coming into a point where there's not much that they can do to like raise the bar for insanity from what The Boys has already done. And don't get me wrong, this show gets insane, but it's like you can't just rely on, well, look at us, we're an edgy superhero show, look at blood, oh, you like blood. Like, you can't, that's not enough at this point. You really have to excel in storytelling, and I think they're doing that. So yeah, I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes of Gen V. Highly recommend it, if you're a fan of The Boys. And I guess if you haven't watched The Boys, you probably you absolutely could jump into Gen V. It's very much its own thing as of now. Who knows? Maybe later on in the season it'll become more dependent on The Boys. But yeah, I mean, you technically could watch Gen V without watching The Boys. Honestly, I'd be very curious to hear what somebody thinks of the show who hasn't seen The Boys. All right, so the other thing that I've been watching, I've been watching this show called Orel. So this, I guess, was an old Adult Swim show, but I just came across it on YouTube. So like all the episodes are just on YouTube. So I think it's probably on Max, I would assume. If it is on a streaming service, I'm not gonna lie, I've just been watching it on YouTube, and basically it's about and so it's like a stop motion animation type show, and it is about this child named Orel who is growing up in a very religious community, and it is it's an adult comedy series that is very much satirizing Christianity. And every episode is basically just them trying to expose the hypocrisy of Christianity. And it's a very interesting show, to say the least, because it's pretty funny. First of all, it's pretty clever. And it is an adult comedy, but it really does have it's very much a dark comedy. Like, it gets really sad at points, and it gets kind of it gets weirdly serious at some points, and it has just a very interesting tone about it that just makes it I kind of can't stop watching it. And it's something that I probably would have liked to have done a reaction series to, but it just wasn't something that I would have expected to have enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying. Um, so it's too late. I'm just gonna watch it for my own personal enjoyment now. But yeah, I would say if you're like very religious and you're very sensitive to your Christianity being criticized, then you're probably not going to enjoy this. But if you have like if you want to watch something that is funny, but that's very much a dark comedy that does get very sad at some points. And if you're sort of just like interested in seeing like not really like yeah, criticisms of Christianity, but more so just like poking fun at some hypocrisies, then this is definitely an interesting one to talk about. And it's not even so much Christianity itself, I would say, as much as like how humans sort of use Christianity and how they perceive it and stuff like that, and how it leads to them just being hypocritical in their actions, I would say. Not even so much the religion itself. Although it definitely does criticize the religion itself. It criticizes every facet of it. So I don't know. It's an interesting show, to say the least. I think that if you're curious and open minded and not like super sensitive, I think you'll probably also think it's at least interesting, like I do. So yeah, I don't know. I've also been watching this show. So yeah, that's about it for the show. I'm really want to keep this what I've been watching segment, because I want to peer pressure myself into watching more things. I'm very busy. I work a lot on YouTube, and I oftentimes just don't find the time to incorporate media lately into my diet. So I need to start doing that. I need to start watching more movies and more shows, and blah blah blah. So I'm gonna try. And but yeah, that's it for this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.